besties, welcome back to my channel, or hi, my name is Stacy if you're new here. So today's video is super exciting because I got to customize my own palette with Lethal Cosmetics. And if you don't know, Lethal Cosmetics is an indie brand based in Germany. This is basically going to be like a brand review of Lethal Cosmetics and their palette builder. So when you go to their website, you have the option to build your own palette, which is what I did. I'm not going to reveal what palette I made yet. So this video is just going to be talking you through the whole process, how I chose the colors for my palette, and also showing you how I use my palette, like the 3 looks I came up with, including the one on my eyes right now. And then yeah, I also include unboxing, swatches, and just like a review and walkthrough of the whole process of how you would order your own custom-made palette through Lethal Cosmetics. And for full transparency, Lethal Cosmetics did gift me this palette, but I was not paid to make this video. And I also have a 20% off discount code for you guys with Lethal Cosmetics, which is Stacy Chen, and I'll also link that down in the description just to let you guys know if you want to save some coin. So thank you to Lethal Cosmetics for giving me that code. So if you guys want to see the whole process from start to finish of me creating my palette, as well as a review of the formula and swatches and everything, then just keep on watching. Before we get into it, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you want to see more content like this, because it really helps out my channel and it would really mean a lot to me. And let's just get right into the video. Okay, so here's what the palette builder looks like. And you can see first you want to select your palette type. So the one that I actually selected was this one called Synergy, which is a 12-pan palette. And when you select it, it looks like this, and you can see how it opens up and it looks so cool. And with each product on this website, you can hover over it and it shows you this little description right here, as well as the price. And then you can see more images here when you click on the arrows. So it has this pop-up menu. So now let's go into the fun part, which is shadows. So you can see they have a ton of shadows. Now, the only thing is they do show out of stock shadows, as you can see here. So what I would do first is to filter here and see, look, when you click on this filter, you have tons and tons of ways to filter. I would filter it to just in stock, because I don't want to pre-order and I don't want to order out of stock things, obviously. And also it has this cool option that's My Stash. It'll show you things that you've already purchased versus things you haven't purchased yet. Here's all the shades. So you can see they have quite a good selection. When you click on a shade like Altitude, it tells you this description, which I found really helpful because this is what they think this shade is. And also tells you the price here. And then if you click on these arrows, as I showed earlier, it actually shows you swatches, and they do show it on different skin tones, which is great. I definitely recommend also Googling online swatches, like from Temptalia or from other YouTubers, because that just helps give you more information. But if you're not like super picky about like the very minute nuances, then you might not need to do that. I feel like these swatches are good enough for that. They're like relatively accurate, especially for the mattes, I think, but more so for the shimmers, because you can't really tell like the texture of the shimmers. Like, don't these look super flat in the swatches? So that's just something to be of note. But at least they have swatches, like that's helpful. You can pull and drag these shadows here, which is super cool. Like, it's a very intuitive, very like responsive type of user interface. And look, I'm just gonna like randomly pull some. But yeah, so if you're like, I don't like this shade anymore, you can just automatically drag it here and it deletes. You can also rotate it like this. Although I feel like that's not really necessary for these since they are squares, but I think some of the other like blushes and bronzers and stuff are rectangles. So now I'm going to show you how I kind of came up with my palette. I knew for my palette I wanted to come up with a fairy like ethereal type concept, because if you've been watching my channel, you know that those are my favorite types of colorful shades. So the first shade that caught my eye was this arcade shade, and you can see the description here. So actually you can just click on it and it will automatically add it, or you can physically drag it. And then I knew that I really wanted this shade called Parsec, because I had seen a YouTuber talk about it, and it was like one of the prettiest shades I've ever seen. So as you can see, it has this description right here. It's a multi-chrome. And just something to note is that the multi-chromes are a lot more expensive. They're like kind of double the price of a regular shadow. You can see how this matte is just $6 and Parsec is $16. So you can customize your palette to kind of match your budget preferences better. If you make a palette just full of these multi-chromes, it's going to be a lot more expensive than a palette full of mattes. You know what I mean? So you can just mix and match based on what your budget is. You know me, you know I love the color pink. So I knew that I was gonna do like a pink row. Also, my mindset was definitely to look through shimmers first and mattes later, because to me, shimmers are like the meat of a look, which I think is kind of backwards to a lot of people, but for me, shimmers are the move, okay? I was looking for some pink shimmers and I found this one, which is called Evoke, and you can see the description here, and see this one is a little bit cheaper too as well, and so I added that one. So evidently I also found a lot of purple shimmers that I really liked. So here we have the shade Synth, You can see the description here. So I was like, yeah, that is a need. I also saw this YouTuber talk about the shade Singularity, and you can see here it's another multi-chrome. If you were to go for any two multi-chromes, I would highly suggest looking up Parsec and Singularity if you have similar preferences to me, because are these not just like the most ethereal fairy type shades? So anyways, continuing with the purple theme, I then found Twilight, which is a warmer purple, and this one you can see here is also really pretty, and this purple also like meshes well with these, you know. Actually all of these kind of go well together. It's variations on a theme, so those like were the most obvious ones to me. And then I've been loving purple and green specifically. Basically I just chose my three current favorite colors, like pink, purple, and green. That was just how I naturally arrived to that conclusion, and I knew going into this palette that I didn't want to do any neutrals basically. Well, I was debating whether or not to put in neutral mattes. I did at one point include neutral mattes, but then I decided against it because I have way too many neutral mattes. But anyways, there were a lot of neutral shades that I thought were really pretty as well, but I decided against it because it's just like that's not what I need for my collection right now. Okay, so now moving on to my green row. They actually don't have too many green shimmers, or at least not the shades that I like. They have a lot of deeper green shimmers. So this Cryptic one was the first one that I found that I liked. So that's this green shade right here. And I was debating between Cryptic and Vertex. You can see here that this swatch is called Vertex, but I felt like it looked a little bit too neon for my taste. Like I wanted something a little bit more muted. So I did go for the Cryptic route. And then I also chose the shade Sigil. And again, this one's really pretty as well. So I think I did settle for some that just had a metallic finish in the greens, but that's because their green shimmers are a little bit lacking. But I think, you know, they're still building out their shade selection. And I guess green is not a super common color, but I hope that they expand their green shade range because I think green is a super pretty color. I also was super attracted to this talisman color, and I had it in my palette for a while, but I decided that I think I have certain colors that are similar to this, and it also looked a little bit deep for what I wanted my palette to look like. It's this one right here. And I didn't really want blue in my palette. I kind of stuck pretty closely to my pink, purple, green theme. Then I found another nice minty green called Professor Patch. I mean, this one does look a little bit more blue, but it said mint, and I guess mint is a kind of vague shade. So I just kind of added it. But I liked how it looked in the swatches that I found online, so I added it. But I wasn't sure if it was going to be too similar to Sigil, but I can tell you in person, they're actually quite different. Anyways, so that was like the bulk of my palette. Those were the colors that I really wanted, and also because my palette was more on the fairy like ethereal side, I stayed away from dark shades, and also I don't like dark shades in general. Now for the mattes. I was kind of debating between getting just like neutral mattes that could pair with any of these, but then I was like, no, that's like too boring for me. And I did want this palette to be more on the colorful side. For greens, I was definitely drawn to this one called Replica, which is a lime green. So it's actually kind of interesting because in this swatch, it looks a little bit muted, but I think in the swatches I saw online, it's more like a lime. So it's a little bit more electric kind of. So I ended up going with this shade called Void. And you can see here, like, it's just like this perfect spring green as they describe it, and it's just like this soft kind of jade sage green, and I was pretty sure I hadn't owned any colors like this, and I love like softer colors. Like this is almost a pastel, it's like a muted pastel. So anyways, I thought it was super unique, and that's how I decided on that color. And then I wanted a matte that would go with pinky purple looks. I definitely looked at Crossroads because doesn't this Crossroads with Cryptic look so pretty? Love a pink and green combo. But when I looked it up, it's actually a pretty bright pink. It doesn't look as muted as the swatch. And I realized I actually have a dupe of this. I think there's like a ColourPop shade that's like really similar. I found it on like the Temptalia side-by-side website. I did end up landing on the shade Onset, and you can see how it's like kind of like this baby dusty pink, and they describe it as a dusty pink. But yeah, I like that it was like super light and muted, and I thought it would go well with like any of these 6 colors. So lastly, I knew I wanted a really light highlighting shade, you know, kind of one of these light ones that's also like a multi-chrome, duochrome. So that was really hard to decide on because they all just look white in the pan and then they have different flips. And I ended up picking Parallax, and you can see the description here. It is super multi-dimensional, and I loved that it said sparkling metallic. And here you guys can see, this is what my finished palette looks like. So here was my full palette price. It does automatically apply some kind of discount based on the palette size. So that's cool. And this is without my own discount code. Of course, it's still an expensive palette, but it is because I did choose specifically expensive shades. If you don't want to spend like a ton of money, just avoid the multi-chromes, or just put like one in there, you know, to kind of spice up your palette. So this is the least expensive palette that you could create with these, which I think this would still be a nice palette. I mean, just of all mattes, not this palette that I created here. So you can customize it based on what your palette budget is. Anyways, this is the finished Stacy Fairy-like Ethereal palette. And I love how the rose just makes sense. Now let's see what she looks like in real life. Okay, so I just received my Lethal Cosmetics package, and let's just unbox it together. these are all the shades I got, and then here's the palette. It also has this writing that says objects in mirror are braver than they appear. So that's cute. So all the shadows come individually packaged like this. When you receive the eyeshadows, they come in this little flap, and it has like a protective cover on it. And you just kind of pop out the eyeshadow, I guess. And it also has little writing in here. So it also shows the shade names at the back. So I have the shade Arcade. Okay, so first I'm just gonna unpack them and put them into the palette randomly, and then I'm gonna try to reorganize it. I actually rearranged the existing shadows that I put in according to the palette that I created, because it's actually a little bit hard to rearrange if you don't leave the spaces left. Now I'm just gonna put in the last two. Okay, so here's the finished palette according to how I built it in the palette builder. I'll show you a side-by-side of what it looks like in my palette versus what I made online, so you can see the difference. Overall, I would say it looks pretty similar. Obviously, some shades end up looking a little bit different, but that's kind of to be expected with like any online purchases. You're never gonna get like exactly what you see online. That's just something to be aware of, but it's like pretty similar. It's not like anything that shocked me. Now let's get into the swatches of these. First, I have the shade Arcade. Ooh, that's stunning. Also, guys, does this not match my nails so well? If you've been watching my channel, you know that I love these types of shades. I would describe this as like a medium cool pink base, as you can see there. It has a lot of kind of greenish gold shift to it and sparkle. And I'll put up what the website description is so you can see how it compares in person. But yeah, this one is super stunning. Okay, next up we have the shade Parsec. Oh my gosh, this one is stunning. I don't think I've ever seen a shade this amazing. It's so amazing, impactful. Holy crap, guys, like, you guys see the intensity of the flip? Let me build it up a little more. Okay, so how I would describe this is kind of like, it's like a more violet pink, like it has a little bit more purple to it in the base, as you can see here, compared to the Arcade shade, and it's a little bit deeper, but the flip is like this really bright yellow green gold. Girl, this just might be my favorite shade, but I don't know yet because I haven't tried everything yet. It's looking really yellow in camera, but in some lighting the flip is green. So yeah, just know that it's a very dimensional shadow. Next up we have the shade Evoke. Ooh, this one is so pretty. This one I think my cool tone lovers are gonna like, because it has that more blue violet flip. And guys, these eyeshadows are so pigmented. Like, with one swipe they're already opaque, but I usually like to build up my swatches a little bit. Oh my gosh, it literally looks like liquid fairy dust. This one flips very strongly blue, this one's like very strong yellow, and this one's kind of like more peachy gold. Also, you guys know I love my pink, so like there was no way I wasn't gonna like these. Are these shades not literally me? Like, look at my nails. They just match so perfectly. Okay, now we have one of the two mattes in this palette. I'm not a matte girl, so. And this is the shade Onset. Okay, here's the shade Onset. I would say the texture is like a very smooth, creamy matte. And ooh, that's very pretty. I like that it's cool toned. Like, it has almost a lavender undertone to it, kind of like a mauve-y pink, but it's not too brown. Like, it definitely has a lot more white slash gray in the color. As you can see, it's pretty light. I prefer lighter shadows like this as a transition, but I do have like a fair light skin tone. But as you can see, actually, like, if you build up the shadow, it gets a little bit deeper. So it does have a buildable quality to it. But yeah, you can kind of see how it has a white base when I flip my hand like this. It really complements all of these pink shades and also my purple shades. But yeah, really opaque formula. It is actually cooler toned than I expected. I mean, I love cool tones, so this is actually a good thing for me, but I wasn't sure how cool tone it would be from the swatches online. Like, it has a little bit more of a purpley gray undertone than I thought it would have, but I actually think that makes it a little bit more unique because I feel like it's harder to find shades like this. Okay, next up we have the shade Synth. And now we're going into the purple row, and oh my god. Hello? Stunning. It's actually amazing how it's like one swipe opaque pigment. I mean, there are other metallics like that, but I love how it's super opaque yet super glittery. Okay, and this I would say is, again, it's more like a purple violet shade with a lot of blue glitter, so it does have like kind of a duochrome effect to it. Again, super impactful, super glittery. Next up we have the shade Singularity. Ooh, this one looks so unique. Oh my god. Okay, I know I keep on saying oh my god to every swatch, but like, okay, yeah. Actually, this one might be my favorite shadow. I don't know, guys, I can't pick. This is super unique, and I can tell you 100% right now that I don't own any shade like this. Like, help, it's so stunning. Okay, so if I were to describe it, it kind of has like this grayness to it, or like silverness to it. And then it has this really strong green yellow reflect. It's more cool toned. This is 100% a need for anybody who loves shimmer. Now we have the shade Twilight. I feel like this one is one of the ones that looks the most different in person, but that's just because this shade is like a little bit deeper, I would say, and like more vivid than it looks online. Ooh, so that's Twilight. The base color is actually kind of similar to the previous one because it's like a cooler, like a blue purple, and then the shimmer is like more like a peachy magenta shade. Like, you know, that holographic peachy pink kind of shade? So it has that. So again, this is like more like a duochrome shade. This one's also quite unique. Like, I don't think I have anything in my collection. Okay, next up we have the shade Parallax. So here's Parallax. Oh yeah, that's stunning. It's actually a lot prettier in person, I think, than I saw in the pictures. Because in the picture it just kind of looks white. And obviously they do have swatches online, but it doesn't capture like the full beauty of this shade. It obviously has a very light base, but it almost has like this pink, this peachy pink base to it. And then the flip is kind of similar to previous flips where it's like a green gold, but it's also super sparkly. A little bit on the sheerer side, but yeah, this is really pretty, and I kind of chose this one to be like a topper for like hopefully topping anything, or even using as like an inner corner shade because it's like the lightest shade out of all of these. Okay, next up we have the shade Cryptic, and this is the first green that I'm swatching. Ooh, very pretty. Ooh, that's such a pretty green. This shade is a little bit more out there for me, but I do like that it's pretty unique. Like, I don't think I have any greens like that. I don't have many greens, but I am a green lover. And it's actually quite bright. Like, it almost looks like a lime green, but I'm pretty sure in the description it was like an olive green. And as you can see, it has a very strong gold flip, which I like. I feel like gold flips make greens more wearable, but also I feel like it does have some like coolness in the base. It's a little bit deeper than a lot of the other shades I chose. Next up, we have this shade called Sigil. Ooh, this is such a pretty aqua shade. So here's Sigil. Okay, so actually this is a lot more blue than I had anticipated. It's supposed to be a mint, but to me it looks more aqua, which I guess in my head is more blue than mint. You guys can let me know what you guys think of like aqua versus mint. I love wearing these types of shades in the summer because it reminds me of like the water, or if you're going on a beach vacation or something. And again, it has that gold flip. I would say these two are a little bit more subtle than most of the other shimmers I swatched, but they're so pretty though, and they definitely still have a lot of glitters in them. They're just not as glittery as the other ones. The glitter content is really important to me, so that's why I'm describing that to you. And then I have the shade Professor Patch, which I was worried was going to be a little bit too similar to the Sigil shade, because this is also like a mint, and this one has like little patches that you have to like mix together. So here's Professor Patch. Oh yeah, okay, I feel like that's pretty different enough, I think. Ooh, that's actually really pretty. Also, I think this would be a gorgeous topper, like with these shades, or as a gorgeous inner corner shade to go with these. I like that it's brighter too. Like, these are on the deeper side for a shimmer, but this one's really bright, so I love that. And I feel like, ooh, that could go well with these purples, like this cooler tone. This one looks like more like an icy blue. I feel like it's a warm blue. I think it has some gold glitters, but this one's more like one color compared to the other ones, because as you know, I love duochromes, so I had to choose like a bunch. But yeah, this one, it's still really pretty, but I have to say these two shades are a lot more blue than I anticipated, because they're both described as mint, which I guess mints can go blue, but I felt like a mint would be a little bit more green than this. I intended for this row to be a green row, but this is turning out to be a green and blue row, which is not that big of a deal. I think it's still super pretty. And now we have the last green shade, and this is the shade Void. This is a really unique green matte. As in, I don't think I have any green matte that looks like this shade. Oh, you guys saw that, right? Like, that swatch was super smooth and really opaque in one go. So I'm actually very impressed with the swatching abilities of these, but we'll have to see what it looks like on the eyes. But here's me building up with 2 layers. You can see that opacity. And this one definitely also has some white to it. You can kind of see like at the edges how it's like turning white. Yeah, like that. I like that for me, for my lighter skin. It kind of like gives it this pastel vibe. Even though these 2 matte shades I chose are technically like not pastels, because they're actually more muted than a true pastel. They have like white and gray, I would say. And I love that, like, even though this is a brighter color, it's so unique because it's just like not too intense. It's not too dark, it's not too light, it's not too bright. It's also not too olivey or muddy. This is just really different to anything I have in my collection. And I feel like this was a super good choice. So here's the finished swatches of my entire palette. Obviously it's very shimmer heavy, but if you've been following my channel, you know that I love shimmers. And since I was gonna go the colorful route, I definitely prefer colorful shimmers. I'm just super impressed with these swatches. Let me know what you guys think in the comments, and hopefully these swatches are helpful if you choose to include any of these shades. Obviously you don't have to include all of the shades I picked, but I feel like adding any swatches to the internet for these individual shades is really helpful. Okay, let's dig into this palette, shall we? I think I'm gonna start off with the green row. I'm not sure if I'm gonna be able to dig into every single shade, but we will see. So I'm gonna start off with this green matte. I'm just gonna place this on the outer corner. Yeah, she's pigmented. Like, it's very opaque. I'm just blending that out in the outer corner. Also, this shadow, it's very pigmented, but it does kick up in the pan. I'm very impressed with like the opacity and also the blendability of the shadow. Okay, I'm also gonna bring this green a little bit like in the crease, like this. Now dipping into this really light mint shade, Professor Patch, and I'm just gonna put that as the main lid shade. And I'm using a brush just to be more precise, since I want to do kind of like a fake cut crease situation, but without like going through the effort of actually doing a cut crease. I did my first cut crease ever on TikTok if you guys want to check that out. But yeah, I'm not like a cut crease girly normally. I want to see if I can like recreate the effect of one without having to actually like bring out the concealer and like the tiny brushes and stuff. And this is my first time attempting that. So okay, so far I think that mint shade was a great idea because it's a really light mint shade and it helps bring that brightness to my inner corner. And I'm also just gonna pack it on a little bit more with my finger. As you can see, it's like a lot more instant impact with your finger. I'm going back into the green matte and I'm just lining my eye like this to try to make a cut crease situation happen. I'm gonna take this white shade called Parallax and I'm gonna use that to line my eye to make that fake cut crease. Ooh, okay, she's pigmented. And I also used a really tiny brush. I got it for free with a Roman palette, which is like a Korean brand. Like sometimes they give you a free brush with your palette, and this one is amazing. Like, do you see that sharp line? I actually shook because that was so easy. I didn't have to cut the crease, and it looks like a cut crease. Girl, not me stunning myself. I'm actually kind of shook. I'm gonna go into this shade called Sigil. I just want to add a little bit of this. I don't really want to add too much because I don't want this to be the main color. I'm gonna add this closer to the outer part, like kind of mesh this mint with that green. So far everything is working stunningly. All the colors are like blending really easily into each other but still pigmented, you know? And I'm just building it up a little bit more. Okay, but girl, I'm actually shook at how easy that was. And now let's like wrap this up. I'm gonna go back into the void shade and we're just gonna put this on the bottom lash line a bit. I do think if I had cut the crease, the colors would be a little bit brighter. So that's like a pro of cutting your crease, but this is like a lazy girl's cut crease hack. Just add some glitter as like a liner and you're good. I also think this worked super well because this shadow is just so impactful. So you definitely have to use like a really glittery, impactful shadow. It has to be strong, you know? And then I'm gonna take again a little bit of the Parallax shade and use this on my bottom lash line. This is my first time using the Parallax shade, and you can see how it looks very, you know, white. But at least with this eye look, it's very yellow green. But I'm curious to see how it will play with other colors because this is more like a multi-chromatic shadow. But yeah, and then I'm gonna go into Professor Patch once again, and we're gonna use that as an inner corner highlight. So that's literally it for the green look. So now I'm gonna go off camera to do my mascara and I'll show you the finished look. Okay, now I'm back with this green eye all finished. So here's what it looks like. What do we think? What do we think? I'm actually like very impressed with myself just because I've only done one cut crease in my life and I've never done a fake cut crease. So I feel like that turned out really well. Like it gave me the effect that I wanted and it was super simple. You guys saw. It's like this fairy garden look. So pretty. And like I don't really have many palettes I think that can give this look. So I'm very pleased with myself making this. And here's what it looks like from afar. Okay, now on to the next look. Okay, let's go into the purples in this palette. Also with my palette, I don't have to just do monochromatic looks because that's what I'm kind of doing today, but you can combine like the purples and the pinks super easily, but I also think purple and green looks really good. You just have to like kind of combine it in the right way, and also pink and green as well. So basically all of the combinations I feel like would look good together. Let me know if you want to see more looks that are like more contrasting colors because I know it can be like harder to pair, but just like naturally how my brain works is like in these rows. Let's go into my only other matte in the palette, which is Onset. Okay, this is definitely like more mauve-y than I anticipated. A little bit more purple than I expected, and also a little bit more gray. I wanted a really light color like this because this is like the perfect transition for me. They do have some other deeper or brighter pinky mattes. I feel like this shade is quite unique. I feel like it has more purple and gray than a lot of mauves, because a lot of mauves like lean more brown, rosy. Okay, I want to play with this color called Singularity. Yeah, it's like one of the most duochromy, interesting colors. So I'm gonna put this as my main lid shade. But this color is like so dimensional. And also in some lights, it kind of looks blue. Love that shade. And then I'm also gonna go into a little bit of this shade called Synth. So I'm gonna put that more on this outer corner, because I think it's a little bit deeper. A little bit. So this one's more like a purple blue shade. And then I wanna take this shade called Twilight. And this one is like a warmer purple, kind of like an orchid purple. And it has a more pink reflect. So we got all the purples we need, you know? But I would honestly just use all of these as like one and dones. That was kind of also part of my intention when I was making this palette, because I just love one and done looks. And that's often how I wear my makeup, even with like more colorful shimmers. Like if I'm not filming, I love a good one and done. Okay, after testing it out, I do think it applies better with the fingers, because when I apply it with the brush, it seems like it kind of takes away some of the color and makes it less impactful. So fingers it is. Yeah, like with the fingers, it's really like packing on the pigment. Okay, now I'm just gonna take a little bit more of the Onset. I'm gonna put that on the bottom lash line here, on this outer corner. And I do wanna test how this Parallax shade looks with these purples. I wanna see if it still looks really green or not. Oh yeah. Okay, so still, it definitely looks very like yellow. So I'm just gonna blend that out a little, but it is like really bright, so it is pretty. I think I wanna actually go into a little bit of this shade called Evoke. It's like a pink, but it has more purple blue in it. I feel like that would look good with this, and I'm gonna put that on the bottom lash line. Okay, yeah, that's really pretty together. Let me blend out the crease a little with some more of the Onset shade. Okay, but that's basically it for this purple eye. So now I'm gonna go off camera to do my mascara, and I'll show you the finished look. Okay, so now I'm back with this purple eye all done. I love how this came out. This one's more of like a kind of tie-dye watercolor effect. I mean, that's like most of my looks, but like I meant because of the gradients and stuff. I just kind of slapped everything on as a gradient and then, you know, added some inner corner highlight and stuff. But is this not so gorgeous? It has like all the purples you need. I was in the bathroom washing my hands, and like the lighting in my bathroom is like very different than this lighting. But I noticed in that lighting, like the colors look so different. The middle shade that's more like this multi-chrome looks green in the bathroom, but this is like, it looks like purple and yellow kind of here, and like teal, I don't know. But anyways, in the bathroom, it looked straight up green. It totally changed like how these shadows looked on my eyes, which I think is amazing. It just means that these shadows are super multi-dimensional. And also just wanted to let you guys know that like basically the camera is not capturing like how beautiful and kind of like multi-chromatic these shadows are. It's literally just like I have iridescence on my eyes. But yeah, so just know that you're not getting the full effect, and the colors like straight up change depending on the lighting. Anyways, here's both my eyes. Let me give you a final look before I remove everything. So anyways, now I'm gonna remove both of these off of my eyes, and we'll come back together for the final and third look. Now I'm back with my eyes all blinked out, so we can go into this pink row. Again, I'm gonna start off with this matte shade called Onset. Also just putting that on the bottom lash line. I think I'm gonna go into this shade first, called Arcade. And this is more of like a warmer pink with some gold yellow reflect. I think I'm gonna put this all over as a base first. And then I'm gonna go into this shade called Parsec, which is a more multi-chrome shade. I'm gonna place that more on the center. Yeah, this one has like a stronger pink base to it and like flips the greeny gold. And now going into Evoke, which is more pinky purple, and putting that on the bottom lash line again. Also, I wet my brush this time, and I highly recommend wetting your brush because it makes it more impactful and also helps the shimmers adhere better. And then lastly, I'm gonna go back into Parallax. I'm just gonna use that as the inner. Oh, that one is very bright. Like that one's like you need one tap because otherwise it's like very, very intense. It's probably like the most intense out of all these shades. Okay, so that's about it for this pink eye look. Now I'm gonna go off camera and finish up the rest of my makeup, and I'll be back to show you guys the finished look and wrap up my final thoughts. Okay, so now I'm back with the finished eye look. What do we think? I made everything pink to match. The eye look doesn't look as pink as it might have just because every color has so many flips to it that it ends up not looking super pink, but the pink theme is definitely there. I love how this turned out. This is definitely like my comfort zone in terms of like colorful shades, because anything pink is super wearable to me. Yeah, it's just like very shimmery, very, again, sparkly, iridescent, but it's still more of like a light wash of everything, and like the colors aren't too in your face, even though there's like a lot of unnatural colors, you could say. So let me know down in the comments which out of the 3 looks was your favorite. Now let's just get into my final thoughts and review of this palette. Okay, so I'm actually back after a few hours because I actually went out to dinner. Also, since it's been a few hours, I just want to show you the eyeshadow and how it holds up. It's already been like 5 hours since I last filmed. Yeah, no creasing, no fading, or not that I can tell. So I guess I did a mini wear test and it passes. So let's wrap up my final thoughts on this palette as well as my review of Lethal Cosmetics as a whole. So I think one of the coolest things about Lethal Cosmetics is the customization. I've never seen a palette builder like theirs on their website. You saw in the demo how it's just very streamlined, very intuitive. So I thought that whole process was amazing. And then the shipping was super fast. It only took like 3-ish business days, I think. So the whole process of getting the palette itself was super smooth. I guess one thing I do want to point out is that if you're a super picky person about color theory, different tones and shades, then I'm not sure if this whole like online ordering process would be the best for you, simply because, as I stated earlier in the video, what you see online is never gonna exactly 100% translate into in person. So my palette does look a little bit different in person than it does online, but not in any way that's like negative or anything. But it's more just like that is something that you have to note, especially if you're someone who like pays attention to really small details and like you picked the shades specifically because of like the very nuanced aspects that you thought you saw on your screen. Like those aren't necessarily going to directly translate over into real life. As for the formula, I'm super impressed. I've actually never tried out indie shadows before, so this is my first time testing those out, and I have to say it's stunning. It's gorgeous. I also especially like that the ones that I picked at least have a lot of micro glittery shimmers. But yeah, as for the color story, obviously I am super pleased, but that's because I came up with it myself. And as for the mattes, yeah, they were super creamy, opaque, blendable, like literally no complaints. The only thing I would note is that they do have like lots of kick up in the pan, kind of similar to like ABH type shadows. So if that's something that bothers you, just something to be aware of. Same with the shimmers as well, actually. They do have a tendency for some fallout, so I would recommend either using an eye primer, which I actually used when I did my second eye, and that definitely helped it adhere to my eye better. It just gave me a lot less fallout. The fallout isn't terrible, but I would say it exists, so do it that way you will. I would just recommend doing your eyes first or using an eyeshadow primer. And when I used an eyeshadow primer, it pretty much fixed the fallout problem. So that's just something to be aware of. I feel like some of you are not gonna like the fact that I chose mostly shimmers and only 2 mattes for this palette, because I feel like pretty much no one else, like when creating a palette, would do that. But this is just me in a palette. And also, like, if I need any other like boring mattes, or if I need like a deeper lining shade, like I can just go into the rest of my palettes for that. That's the thing, is because I really wanted to curate like shades that I don't have in my collection, and also shades that I thought would be more fun and interesting. So I didn't include any, like, I guess practical shades you could say, like no neutrals, no lining shades, no nothing, because I already have like 10,000 of those in my collection. So that would just not be the move for me personally. But obviously when you create your own palette, you can customize it to however you want. So that's kind of the beauty of this Lethal Cosmetics palette customization. Also, something important to note about Lethal Cosmetics is that all of their products are vegan, cruelty-free, halal, and carbon neutral. So if you have a lot of restrictions, you got all your bases covered. I feel like most people will be able to use their formulas. And also the standard shipping is $8.99, and they also have 3-day express shipping available as well. Now the price, she is a little bit pricey. That was because I made her that way. I will say that you can definitely customize it to like fit into whatever your palette budget is. As you saw in my demos, I just wanted to show you that you can like create some palettes that are a lot cheaper. So it really depends on like how many kind of special shades you want to put. Like, kind of imagine if you made like a Pat McGrath palette, but that only has special shades. Like, of course that's going to be a lot more expensive than a Pat McGrath that only has like her mattes or something, you know? And then the main thing I kind of wanted to use this palette as was just like a palette of one and dones, or like 2 and dones, you know? Like, especially with the amount of shimmers I have in here, that was kind of the whole purpose, was to be a palette full of pops for me. But of course you guys could create a more standalone palette that works like just within itself. But since I have such a large collection, I did want to create something that's more useful to my collection and stuff that I can actually pair with my collection. And you guys could do that for your collection as well. So it just kind of depends which route you want to go. Another thing is, I think that creating these palettes would be an amazing holiday gift for the holiday season coming up, either for yourself or for your loved ones. And I think especially because it has that customization aspect, like, you know that person is gonna love it. You could do it either more like a gift card situation, as in like where you tell your best friend that you'll give them this amount of money and they can create their own palette or something like that. Because I think it would be a little bit harder to create a palette for your best friend. But if you do know them well enough and their makeup preferences well enough, like, I feel like you could also do that. Like, isn't that such a cool gift idea? Like, to create a custom one-of-a-kind palette. Like, I think that would be such an amazing gift, but definitely is more intensive and creative of a gift idea. But anyways, once again, my discount code for 20% off is Stacy Chen. If you want to use it, I do make a commission, and it really helps me out and helps out this channel out a lot, so thank you guys in advance. Of course, if you don't want to use it, don't feel pressured to. And also, if you guys want to purchase this exact palette, I'll have it linked down in the description as well. Or you could like take parts of it and substitute your own parts of it. Anyways, overall, I'm super happy with my experience experience with Lethal Cosmetics, but I'm super excited to play with these more. I hope you guys found this video helpful. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up if you like this video, and comment and subscribe down below if you want to see more content like this, because it really helps on my channel and it would really mean a lot to me. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all in my next video. Bye!